Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today for the TEN Life Science Syndicate monthly event. We have a great lineup of presenters today, and catching up, we have with us on the investor panel today, Owen Kirwan. We also have Philip Hugh, and we also have Franklin Rice, and we'll be getting to those in a moment. Before we do that, we'd like to tell you a little bit more about TEN Capital. TEN Capital helps startups, growth companies, investors raise funding through its fundraise program. At heart, we form capital. We help angel groups find members. We help VC funds find limited partners, and we help family offices launch and start their family office itself. So we're trying to work up and down the stack, helping people form capital for early stage companies. So next slide. So if you're currently raising funding, go ahead and scan that QR code in. We'll follow up with you to see your interest and what can we do to help you fit in those categories. If you're a startup or an angel group leader or a family office or a venture capitalist, we have something for you to work with in one of our programs. With that, we'll go ahead and follow up to see how we can help you. Next slide. So like I say, my background is I started 3 angel networks in Texas back in the 2000s, so very familiar with the angel world. And so we often come across angel investors in our network that are looking to connect to an angel group. And so we can make introductions to potential members for you, those that are running an angel group. For those with VC funds, we help form family offices and know many high net worths. And so we're often making introductions. We do have a family office panel series in which we bring family offices together online and in person for updates about what's going on in the family office world, and have venture capital groups help us with those programs. And finally, if you're a high net worth individual and you're considering starting a family office, we do help you figure out with our wealth advisors and our technologists what are the tools that you might use to automate your family office. There's about 30 different software tools out there that we highlight on our roundtables online and how they work. And then we also have wealth advisors come in to talk about how do you start a family office? How do you check your situation to see if it's the right fit for you? So with that, next slide. So TEN Capital is currently a team of about 6, and we're now adding 4 more people. So we're growing to 10. Our headcount is growing as the market grows with us. So we're having a good experience here, and many of people who come in will get a chance to work with these guys as well. So next slide.
Okay.
Great.
Frank Rice here.
Hey, Franklin, thanks for joining us. We'll be with you in just a moment.
You bet.
So my background is I started a group called Texas Entrepreneurs Network in 2009 after I started those 3 angel networks, having more fun doing that than my day job at National Instruments. So I retired, started my second career, and started working around Texas and eventually around the country. We went national in 2017 and changed our name to TEN Capital, and have been working in that mode ever since. We continue to grow and expand our program. Our roots are in Texas, but we now work across the country with the fundraising programs that we have. Next. And we do online events. Before the pandemic, we did 31 in-person events. Pandemic put us all online with 12 online events per month. That was quite an experience. Every day was an event day. And then now that we're coming out of the pandemic, we're coming back into our roadshow series where we're getting back in person. And so we'll be in Chicago, June 12th. We'll be in Austin, July 17th. We'll be in Dallas, August 22nd. And then on our way around the fall to the Southern California, the Bay Area, New York, Washington, D.C., and Houston. You can check our calendar out for the dates of those in-person roadshow events. 30, 40, 50 people come out to them. 20, 30 investors in the room. It's a great place to meet investors and work on it. We also do in-person dinner events. We find that Zoom is a great way to start these dialogues, but it can be tough to close. And we get people back together for closings, usually at lunch or dinner sessions or in key areas around the country. Curious for us are Austin, Dallas, Bay Area, Chicago, New York, and DC. So we often find ourselves in those cities doing these events itself. Next. So this is the list of the cities that we're going to. We are firming up the dates. We have most of these firmed up already. A few are still floating, like New Mexico. We're trying to be a part of other things there, and it's moving around. But other than that, we should be in these cities in the fall coming up as well. Check out our events page on the TEN Capital website for the next event that's near you. Let's next. We also have a podcast program. It's called Investor Connect. If you want to hear more about how VCs invest money or how angels deploy capital, check that out. We have 650 interviews with different investor types up there, some startups as well. And we also have what's called the Startup Funding Espresso. The time it takes to drink an espresso, you can learn something about startup funding and investing. These are 300-word blog posts that are also audio components. We currently have 970 of them up on the website, and we have now put them behind a chat bot, so you can actually use a startup you go to the startupfundingespresso.com. You can actually type in your question. It's in the lower right-hand corner, and it's actually using a large language model to search through the nearly 1,000 espressos to give you a correlated answer. It works really great. In the future sessions, I'd like to give that a demo to show you how that works. But you can check it out now if you want at startupfundingespresso.com. So next slide. We also have a mentor and advisor program for those in the audience that want to join and provide mentorship and advisory services. We have a network for that. We'll have to talk with you about that afterwards. Just put a question in the chat box and we'll pick up your contact details to tell you more about it. Next. With that, I think we're finished with the slides for today. With that, let's go ahead, and we have one of our investors on the panel with us. We have with us Franklin Rice of Pescadero Capital. Franklin, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your group?
You bet. And first things first, Scott Shively, how the heck you doing, brother? Haven't seen
Franklin,
you
how
in
are you?
years.
Long time no see.
I thought you cashed out, retired, and were out in the Bahamas sailing your yacht or something like that.
Well, not quite yet. You know,
Was I
once in
misinformed?
biotech, it's a habit.
Well, I see it's a
get away from.
small world there, Franklin.
It's a very small world. But
there you go.
I wish I had Dr. Shively, half of Dr. Shively's expertise, but as they say, I'm the Avis business model, try harder. But I'm a 30-year life science vet, mostly private company finance, CFO stuff. Been practicing here in the Bay Area, as I say, for the past 30 years, and focus generally on CNS and pain therapeutics. And a couple of years ago, I created this strategic advisory firm called Pescadero Capital, which is where I work today.
Great, thanks.
Good meeting you folks.
We also have in the audience Owen Kirwan of VU Ventures, and we also have Philip Shu of H2 Bio that will also be asking questions through the chat box. So with that, let's go and kick off with our first presenter, Scott Shively of Bexion. Scott, if you'd like to go ahead and launch your slides, we'll kick you off there. Each presenter has 15 minutes to pitch and answer questions. So when we get 9-10 minutes into it, we'll look to see if we can move into the Q&A by Franklin, Owen, and Philip. So with that, go ahead and kick off, Scott.
Thank you. Let me just cue up the presentation mode. Can you guys, are you guys getting that?
We can see it now.
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. So, and hi, Franklin.
Hey, all right, Scott.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. And again, presenting at one of the TEN Capital events. For those of you who maybe have heard our pitch before, we've been working with Paul and the group for the last, gosh, I don't know, month or two. And some of you may have heard the story before, but they do a great job with organizing these things. So really appreciate the process. What I'm going to do is give a little bit of an introduction to the company and an update for those of you maybe who haven't heard our story. But I'm going to spend the majority of time focusing on the new data that's come out on our lead program in colorectal cancer. So because it's very exciting, it's just come out just this past week, and I can share it with you here, online. And we're here at the Bio International meeting out in San Diego this week, presenting this to numerous folks. I just gave a presentation this morning at Bio here, so it's been quite well received. It's very exciting. If you're interested in, potentially investing in an up-and-coming biotech working in the area of solid tumor cancers, this may be of interest for you. So the company is based in the Midwest in the U.S. So for a biotech, that's very unique. So we're not Cambridge, we're not Northern California or Southern California. And the reason is we're a spin out originally out of the Cincinnati Children's Hospital and Medical Center, which is the country's actually foremost pediatric hospital. It's been rated more highly than places like Boston Children's and others. And they have a very, very active academic research arm from which our founder initially licensed the asset and the IP and started the company. And we're actually in Covington, Kentucky, which is sort of this up and coming kind of hub in the Midwest for biotechs and incubators and wet lab space and so on. It's really a phenomenon going on there just in the Midwest. So it's really an interesting story. So our focus is on, as I said, it's solid tumor cancers, and it's also neurologic conditions. So we're a up and coming, sort of recently out of stealth mode biotech company, but we're what differentiates us is we're well along into the clinic. We're actually in phase 2. So we've already been through phase 1 safety studies with the FDA, and now we're in phase 2, and we're getting now this very encouraging efficacy data that I'll share with you in a moment. Our lead study that we're doing with our asset, it's called BXQ350. It'll have a name eventually as it goes through a little bit more development. It'll have a brand name, but we're doing a phase 2 metastatic colorectal cancer trial right now, and it's first-line therapy, which is very unusual. Most of the new companies developing products in metastatic colorectal cancer are doing third line, fourth line mutations, really small niches. So this is upfront and first line, and that was at the request of the FDA. We've also got a ongoing trial looking at the reversal of or treatment of peripheral neuropathy in breast cancer survivors and colorectal cancer survivors who have survived the cancer, but they have existing really horrible nerve damage in the periphery, in the hands and feet, caused by some of the older chemotherapeutics that are still used predominantly both in breast cancer and in colorectal cancer. So those are the two main aspects of our program. We have a very, very solid IP position. We have issued patents around the world. We anticipate that by the time all those are issued, we'll have a runway to 2050, which is great from a commercial perspective and of great interest to prospective big pharma partners. And it is, in that light, it is a global opportunity. In other words, this could be commercialized or proven commercialized around the world. So again, it's very interesting for big pharma players, potentially. And then we've raised, actually, as of this week, over $113 million to date since inception. And a large number of those have been family offices and high net worth individuals. We do not, as of yet, have a VC or an institutional investor in the company. Our lead investors are Cincinnati Children's Hospital, another big hospital group in greater Cincinnati area, and several big corporate VCs in the greater Cincinnati area. And then it's high net worth investors and family offices. So it's quite a unique cap table we have, and a lot of support we have regionally, because we are the foremost biotech now coming out of this region of the Midwest. And what we're doing right now is that we have a $50 million Series C round that's open. We have closed on 43 million of that. We would like to get at least 7 million more. We have the ability to go beyond the 50. So that's the short-term opportunity, I think, for investors. And we're planning on closing this round by June 30th. So there's a little bit of a short time frame on this, but we'd be very happy to take interest in investments in the company at this point. Longer term, our plans are to do an IPO. We're preparing for second quarter of next year. And as you might imagine, there's quite a bit of interest from strategic players from big pharma companies. We've had a number of very good meetings here just this week at the bio meeting. This is a big pharma partnership waiting to happen, basically, in our view. So I'll save time on this. I want to go right to the data, okay? And this is like very exciting on the product. So this is an outline of the study that has been ongoing. It's a phase 2 study, and it's in some respects, a classic solid tumor cancer study. This one's in, as I said, metastatic colorectal cancer. So pretty serious. The disease is metastasized. There are multiple tumors, unfortunately, that these patients have. And so what you look at as far as FDA endpoints, you're looking at things like shrinkage of tumors or remission of tumors. You're looking at the ability of our drug to maintain standard of care therapy in a better way. And that's been a big problem because of side effects with the older chemotherapies. And then ultimately, you're looking at survival. So in this group of patients, if you can extend survival by 1 or 2 months, the FDA is going to give you the thumbs up if the product has a reasonable safety profile. And our product is very, very safe. So let me share this is the hot off the press data with you. And this is from, again, the metastatic colorectal phase 2 study. And what you guys are looking at, if you've seen data like this, you may be familiar with this from cancer studies. But if you're new to it, Each one of these vertical bars is a patient. And what you're looking at is regression of tumors. So tumor change from baseline under treatment with our drug, first line metastatic colorectal cancer in combination with standard of care, which includes a very toxic drug called oxaliplatin. And so from baseline, that's right here, actually right here, this is percent of decrease of tumor size of all tumors. And these patients all have an average of 5 tumors, so they're pretty ill patients. And what you're seeing here is some very, very encouraging results. You're seeing in this patient, for example, they'd have a total tumor volume regression of 67% since inclusion in the study, and that's pretty remarkable. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these patients have hit a threshold of 30% or greater, and that is called a partial response. That's something that the FDA looks at as a threshold for pretty good performance of a new drug. You can see that several more are very close to that, and as we continue dosing them, most likely they will pass that threshold. So anything over 45% of patients beyond 30% will be viewed very positively by the FDA. But even more encouraging, you've got tumor regression in almost all patients, 20 out of 21 patients, for a 95% disease control rate. And just to kind of give a comparison on that, if you look at standard of care today for these types of patients, you're lucky to get 55, 60% on that measurement. So this is clearly something very good is happening with our drug added to the cocktail. Also encouraging here, I'll point out no new lesions, so no new tumors have popped up in any of these patients. And again, in metastatic patients, that's not usually the case, unfortunately. It keeps progressing. The other thing that's quite interesting here is we were asked by the FDA to measure the amount of a drug called oxaliplatin, this one right here, which is being dosed along with our drug. That's the standard of care, and it's used in a regimen called FOLFOX. If you happen to be an oncologist or an MD, you'll recognize that right away. It's been a regimen that's been used for years to treat these types of patients. And the problem is this drug is neurotoxic. It kills nerve cells in the periphery, in your hands, in patients' hands and feet. And typically, patients can't tolerate more than about 6 doses, or what we call cycles. That's on the left-hand side here. And that's why this is called the zone of disruption. Usually patients have to stop the therapy. These are very sick patients, right? And you want to not have to stop the therapy because you're trying to attack the tumors. And what you're seeing with our drug added to the cocktail here is that most of the patients are getting well beyond the 6 cycles, but beyond even like 12 cycles. And that's the ideal. That's what you're targeting for this type of therapy. And we think others will get there too. These patients are still continuing. So this is super encouraging. We think the FDA will find this to be very favorable. And this finding, this measurement of amount of oxaliplatin dose has been linked in published studies to survival in these types of patients. So it's a pretty cool finding that we have here. So what you have with our product, to kind of sum it up, is you've got one mechanism, the way the biologic works. This is a protein, a naturally occurring protein that we've created or modified rather, but it has, although it has one mechanism of working, it has 2 positive actions. One is that it attacks tumors, and the other is that it prevents the occurrence of this debilitating side effect in patients in combination therapy. So I'll end with one more slide here, if I may, Paul. Quickly, this one. So just to kind of tie, milestones with what we plan to do from a capital campaign perspective. So as I said, we're at the tail end of our $50 million round. We want to close that out quickly now. We plan to initiate a Series D, which would become a crossover round, and then work toward an IPO. We're targeting and preparing for a second quarter IPO. We're beginning to write the S1 on that now. We've already done a 2-year audit with Deloitte and so forth. And this parallels the key milestones coming up. So we do plan to have a Type C meeting with the FDA to review this data in detail and then decide on next steps. And we're hoping to get an accelerated pathway to approval after that. So that's kind of the fast story on it, but we're just elated about the data. And as I said, I'd be quite happy to take questions and go in the chat room, or take one-on-one follow-ups as you guys would like to do. Paul, thanks.
Great. Thanks, Scott. For our investors in the audience, Owen and Philip, if you could type your questions into the chat box. We'll start with Franklin's here that he already put in. And the first question is, what is the use of proceeds for the Series C? What are you going to do with the money?
Great question. Thanks, Franklin. So it is to get us past these key readouts here, past the FDA meeting, to finish up the study, right? Because there's more patients that we're dosing to create a more robust database here. And also to complete the other trial that's underway for the treatment of peripheral neuropathy, but also to give us enough runway to get us well along through actually second quarter of next year, this point here, because we want to have enough runway to get clearly through the IPO and the ability to close this round, because in today's market, in biotech, has been challenging the last couple of years to raise institutional rounds. We think that's starting to change now, but you have to allow for 6 to 9 months to do that. So it's really runway, but to fund the regulatory and the clinical trial work that we're doing.
And what's the pre-money on the Series C?
Pre-money is 175 million. And that was set over a year ago, before this data had come out, actually before we actually started dosing patients. So we allowed this to stay open to, hopefully bring in more investments. But I think it's a bit of an advantage, frankly, for investors coming in now, because we can actually share this data with them. And, folks who came in earlier didn't have the benefit of seeing that. But, we're good with that. Our counsel's okay with that. And I think we just like to close this round out.
And the third question is, who is the CMO and outline of phase 3 clinical dev plan for MCRC?
Okay, so the CMO, the chief medical officer, is
Yes. Yeah.
okay. So we just have hired a fellow named Dr. Tariq Arshad, who is a very experienced. First of all, he's a clinical oncologist. He's a board certified oncologist, but he's worked at Merck, at Pfizer, and at Genentech, and has done a couple of biotechs already. And he's very well versed in drug development, working with the oncology division at FDA, and he's also a great guy. And maybe in a future talk, I can bring him on, Paul, to meet the team as well.
Scott, that's a
Great.
fantastic story. Fantastic.
Thank you. Thanks.
Great. And next question from Owen in the audience is, can you talk a little bit more about the safety profile of BXQ350 as compared to other treatments currently on the market?
Yes, it is extremely safe, and so this was demonstrated. I skipped over the slides in the phase 1 slide, so I would have to go back to that. Oh, maybe I can. Give me 1 second. There we go. Okay, on the left-hand side of this slide, so this is a remarkably safe product. It's a naturally occurring protein, just slightly modified. And so we have seen no organ toxicities. In fact, there has only been one side effect in the phase 1 study, 86 patients. That was an infusion reaction, kind of an allergic reaction to the needle, the infusion needle. This is an infused product, as a lot of cancer products are, and that's easily dealt with, at the site. So aside from that, very, very safe. That's one of the reasons that the FDA said, hey, go for first line, because there's not a great risk of adding, more safety or side effects issues to patients.
The last question is, a lot of successful progress and investment so far being at Series C. What would be some of the risks that you see at this point?
Well, I think, we've got a pretty good, obviously the safety box, I think, has been checked. Now what we're getting is, good indication of efficacy from the data we showed you. So we don't see, as we add the next, finish out the next 8 patients that we have to dose to finish the trial, we really don't see the chance of that changing. I mean, the trend has been better with all 3 scans we've done. So the risk would be more time risk is the FDA going to agree to a pivotal trial as the last step, or are they going to make us do a classic phase 2B than phase 3? So it'd be more time risk, timing to market, timing to regulatory approval. That's the way that I would characterize that.
Great. And that's the last of our questions, and we are at the end of our time. Thank you, Scott, for your presentation.
Great.
Thank
Thanks,
you guys for
Thanks
great
a lot.
questions as
Thank you
well.
so much.
With that, we'll move to our next presenter, Sajal Ghoshal of Cardio, Advanced TeleSensors. Sajal, go ahead and launch your slides, and we'll kick off when you're ready. We see your screen?
I will change my thing. Yep.
And it's in presentation mode. Go ahead.
Yes. So I'm Sajal Ghoshal. I'm the CEO of Cardio. I'm a serial executive with 3 successful exits totaling $3 billion. The last one was a $2.2 billion acquisition by Intel. So the question is, why am I so passionate about this business? My father died of a heart attack at a young age of 51, and it had a huge impact on me. I realized I made a mistake just focusing on engineering alone. So now I'm making up for lost time and focusing on healthcare, and I need your help. So you all must know someone that's had a heart attack or died due to heart failure. And it's surprising in this day and age that people find out that they have cardiovascular disease after they have a heart attack. So how would you like to see some of these tragedies prevented? That's what cardio is focused on. So the problem we're trying to solve is reduce hospital readmissions of heart patients that cost insurers billions of dollars and many lives are lost. The reason is 95% of beds in nursing homes are unmonitored, leaving patients vulnerable to sudden cardiac events. So the answer actually is very simple. You just need a heart monitor that's always on. So we have a revolutionary way of doing this. It was developed at NASA and protected by 6 patents. It's a touchless heart monitor that is always on and doesn't use any wearables. It's a small sensor that is mounted to the wall behind the patient and detects the micro vibrations of the heart using radar, and then alerts your nurses and cardiologists to abnormal heart rhythm so that treatment can be adjusted, preventing cardiac events from escalating and minimizing penalties from Medicaid due to reimbursements. So why are radar sensors so fascinating? This radar technology was developed by NASA's engineers who were on the Mars rover mission. Fascinating group of engineers that I met. So technology consists of bouncing a radio wave off the person's chest and on the reflected wave detecting the micro vibrations of the heart using an ultra-sensitive low noise antenna and machine learning algorithm. So continuous monitoring actually reveals key cardiac patterns that are precursors to cardiac deterioration. So we've strategically positioned the company to target the $1.5 billion skilled nursing home market, our beachhead market, which is part of the larger $31 billion fast-growing remote patient monitoring market. So you might be wondering, what is the big deal of monitoring heart rates without wearables? By law, Medicaid reimbursements require at least 16 days of monitoring data out of 30. Cardio is actually a keystone that enables the 16 days of monitoring automatically because we don't need any patient compliance. The patient doesn't have to wear anything or do anything, and wearables cannot do this. So now you understand why we are a key component to our patient care integrators, because we can enable consistent Medicare reimbursements with our monitor. So how do we make money? We sell the hardware and we license the software on a monthly basis. Just like Apple and Tesla, our margins continuously increase with time, which gives us high profits and for a better acquisition. So we've built a moat to protect ourselves against our competition. NASA's radar technology has been exclusively licensed to cardio. We protect our core technology with 6 patents that have already been granted. Our machine learning and AI algorithms are all proprietary trade secrets. Our 510K pathway has been approved by FDA, and we meet Medicare CPT reimbursement requirements. So who is our competition? We do have real competition. What is interesting is cardio can detect a wide variety of critical conditions, while our competition detects heart rate and respiratory rate. In addition, our costs are low, which allows us to do a lot more things and grow faster. So why is this a good opportunity for you? So our 5-year revenue projection is $102 million with high profit margins. With 2 small rounds of funding, we are profitable, which minimizes investor dilution and leads to a great exit. So why am I so excited about this team? I've known Frank for over 20 years. He has a background in hospital operations, and I trust him. Dr. Jason Zagrosky is our Chief Medical Officer and a specialist in cardiac arrhythmia. And Trudy Veal is our VP of Sales with a strong background in medical sales of devices. Elisa leads our FDA compliance with over 20 years of experience in the FDA. And Steve Monacos and John Armstrong are our founders from NASA and our key technologists. So we're raising a small bridge round, a $2.5 million convertible note, and we have raised $600,000 to date to build our sales pipeline to deliver the $1 million ARR and complete our FDA 510K clearance. Subsequently, we will do a Series A, which will be all the funding we will need to take this to a successful exit. So here are some recent acquisitions by major medical device companies that have acquired wearable devices for remote patient cardiac monitoring. Our technology lends itself to more of a strategic acquisition in the clinically smart cardiac care, and will most likely be based not necessarily on multiples of sales. It may not be very far out. So who are our customers? Our customers patient care integrators who have over 200,000 beds today. This keeps our customer acquisition costs low and maximizes our return on investment. We have two pilots with institutional people, and we have 300 sensors right now in 8 nursing homes with paying customers. We just signed a 3-year contract with TRKD, and we'll be shipping 400 units a month starting in August. Other 2 customers are completing the trial before they become paying customers. We are generating monthly subscription revenue to date and have $45,000 in revenue, and our plan is to hit $500,000 by the end of the year. So I recognize that this presentation is relatively short, and there may be a lot more questions you have, especially by the team. Do we have the right passion, tenacity, and good judgment to bring this company to a successful exit? For that, I think you got to get to know me, so let's have a meeting and talk about it. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sir Joel. Owen, go ahead and type your question in the chat box as well, Philip. And Franklin, what's your question? You can just tell us, ask it out loud if you like.
Okay, really great presentation, Sahol. Quick knee-jerk reaction. The good news, bad news in the whole EBITDA capitalization. Your Series A at $5 million. You know that's really small in today's market. What's your target investor profile to when you're looking at, considering that that's clearly a second, maybe even third tier VC. I assume that you've considered what the investor perspective is on that kind of a small size Series A, backed up then by risks around your EBITDA based revenue profile.
That's the correct statement. Our initial play was to do about an $8 to $12 million round, but looking at the investor profile at this point, we concluded that a bridge round to kind of cover us to get that first level of good traction that we could pay was the reason for the convertible note. So we took off that amount of money and bounced it out for a $5 million, but we really think in the end it'll be a $5 to $10 million round. We didn't want to get too aggressive in the beginning because we wanted to see how well we actually hit traction, because we really have an optimistic view of how much money we can do this year.
Okay, thanks.
Next question from Owen is, could you please tell us about some of the feedback that you received from the initial pilot? And you have the key customers in the discussion pipeline at the moment.
Yes. So the first pilot we started in October last year was completed by November. They found, and these were in nursing homes and assisted living all over the country. We actually never visited the customer. They got deployed and automatically configured. And got into usage immediately. Other than a few blinking lights where we had some issues, we've turned off lighting so that it's transparent to the particular patient. We found that we were tracking heart rates now consistently, and they had filed for Medicare reimbursements in December and were paid in December. So we know that we have the mechanism to file through the Medicare reimbursement process. The second one, which is PAM Health, which is far very interesting, is where we were actually deploying devices in patients' homes. And we managed to detect certain patterns that showed that particular patients were having either an AFib or some issue with their cardiology, and that they could be referred back to the cardiologist. So, for instance, in some patients, we saw that they were sleeping in bed for longer and longer periods of time. They started at 12 hours and landed up at 19 hours. And so medication changes were then introduced to be able to bring them out. So this is the advantage of long-term tracking of cardiac parameters that we can sort of bring something to bear on.
Right. Next question is, are there some situations where the technology does not work? In what case is that?
Yeah. So the biggest challenge in any of these technologies that are in a remote monitoring is movement, right? So what we do is we can track normal movement of a person sitting in bed, getting up to have a cup of coffee, getting across the bed to the couch to read a book. All of that we can track, because most of that movement is random and not repetitive. Where we have a serious problem, where we have a difficulty in tracking the heart rate, is repetitive movements that become very close to where the heart rate is. And these occur on a treadmill. When someone's running on a treadmill, we don't do a very good job of tracking that heart rate because we pick up the body movement in the treadmill, which is repetitive.
Great. Can you tell us more about the use of funds?
Yeah, so the $2.5 million that we want to raise is to get our FDA compliance done. We've already met with the FDA, met with them for a year, and clarified all the clinical requirements and the human factor requirements. We have that approval over the last month. We met with our CROs, and we can get the clinical study and human factors done for close to $750,000 to $800K. So that's one part of the investment that we would need to complete that by midsummer next year. The balance is driving our sales and engineering folks so that we can put the operations in place. We really need to start to scale at 10,000 devices in every quarter. We are already seeing a lot of pressure for close to 2,000 to 5,000 devices a month. At this point, we're scaling slowly at 500 devices a month, but you need to scale up, and that requires a little bit more operations input to manage our suppliers.
You mentioned 3 exit scenarios. Which one do you think is the most likely, and when would that happen?
So we think that based on our trajectory of reaching our revenue profile, which is close to $2.8 million next year and growing up to $16 million, we will be in the right place for an acquisition. Because of our future advantages, where we will be able to do irregular heart rate, where possibilities of detecting arrhythmia on a continuous basis will be fairly powerful, and apnea and fall detection, this will bring our device into a much more broader space. Acquisitions can be from various remote patient monitoring groups that are there. So Philips is in remote patient monitoring, Masimo is in remote patient monitoring, Medtronic is also getting remote patient monitoring. So these are targets that we expect to see acquisition occur on.
Great. That's the end of the questions we have now. Thank you so much, Joel. Appreciate the presentation. We'll now move to our next presenter, to Bioelectric. Bill?
Ready? Thank you, everyone. My name is Bill Limecooler. I'm Bioelectric's co-founder and chief operating officer. Along here with me today is Steve Cornelius, our CEO. Steve, why don't you give the group a little bit about your background?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. So, hello, everybody. I'm Steve Cornelius, CEO of Bioelectrics. I've been in the dental industry for 27 years. Most recently, I ran the preventive dentistry division for Dentsply, which is the largest strategic in dental manufacturing. Prior to that, and I'll just add a likely acquisition target eventually for Bioelectrics. Prior to that, I ran Dentsply Canada. And then prior to that, I was sales director for a small startup that Dentsply had acquired called Tulsa Dental, which basically changed the way root canals were done worldwide. So a lot of extensive experience in the dental industry, and with that, I'll turn it over to Bill.
So, Steve's the industry expert. I'm the entrepreneur, 4th generation entrepreneur. Family's been in medical devices for 3 generations, both on the clinical as well as the distribution side. And where we're going to start our conversation today is talking about a condition known as periodontitis. So advanced forms of gum disease beyond gingivitis. A huge market worldwide. It's the 6th most prevalent condition in the entire world. I saw a stat today that they think 61% of people across the globe suffer from the disease. If we take a look here in the United States, it's about half of adults over age 30 have periodontitis. But as we know, most people, a little bit more than half, don't visit the dentist every year. So we're honing in on those people that visit the dentist at least once a year. And as you break that down a little bit further, we're focused on the patients with mild to moderate forms of the disease. The severe people are having to have teeth extracted, going for implants, things like that. What's interesting is even though there's a large number of people that have mild to moderate forms of the disease, most go untreated. And that is due to cost, fear, pain, etc. So there's this really cool market. It's about an $8 billion target market where patients are dissatisfied with the existing standard of care, and they're not receiving treatment. They're in the practice, and they're saying no due to pain, inconvenience, and cost. And if we take a look at the standard of care, you can kind of see why. So, it starts with the dentist hitting you with an injection for anesthesia. They have to numb your mouth. And then they take that little scraper they use to clean your teeth, and they go up under your gums to remove the bacterial plaque that live on the roots of your teeth. A nasty procedure, may have to be done a couple times, can take upwards of an hour and a half, and it's expensive. It's about $1,200 out of pocket to do the whole mouth. Dental insurance really isn't a factor here. So clearly there has to be a better way to treat the disease, because case acceptance is only about 35% in dentistry, and you can see why. So I'll play a short video introducing our Auraflow device and give you some background on our technology.
Welcome to Auraflow. Auraflow is a medical device that uses microcurrent electrical stimulation to treat periodontal disease, also known as gum disease. Auraflow is used for 20 minutes per day or as directed by your clinician. Included in the Auraflow box are 5 components: the mouthpiece, the charger, the power cord, the quick start guide, and the user manual. Remove the mouthpiece from the charger. Press and hold the button for 1 second to turn on. The battery icon is solid white when the mouthpiece is powered on. Completely insert the mouthpiece into your mouth. Gently place your upper teeth and lower teeth inside the mouthpiece. Press the button to start the 20-minute treatment. The treatment light is solid blue when treatment is running. The 20-minute treatment is complete when the treatment light flashes white and the mouthpiece plays a short melody. Rinse both sides under warm running water for at least 30 seconds after each treatment. When cleaning is complete, place the mouthpiece on the charger until your next treatment. Congratulations! Welcome to the world of Auraflow. Smart, personal periotherapy.
So as you can see, we have an entirely different treatment paradigm, right? We're trying to bring new technology to periodontology in a very similar way that Invisalign did to orthodontia. We use clinically proven microcurrent, right? So anyone in medicine, medicine's been using electrical stimulation for beneficial purposes for 100 years, and only now is it coming to dentistry. Kind of tells you how behind the times we are. It's convenient and portable treatment, right? So you can take it anywhere, use it on your drive to work. It's painless prescription device, so a dentist would prescribe it, stock a couple in his or her supply closet, and then dispense it to the patient on the way out the door. Our goal is to be about 2/3 the cost of the standard of care. So if the retail price for scaling and root planing is about $1,200, we'd like to be in the $700 to $800 range. And it connects the clinician and the patient. Our device records all the compliance metrics. We know as soon as patient takes it out of their mouth and what quadrants of mouth are receiving treatment. So we know exactly, really for the first time, when a patient is taking care of themselves at home. Recently, we participated in a oral care startup accelerator. Believe it or not, there's actually a lot of oral care startups because of the magnitude of the space. And we needed some insights, consumer-driven insights in terms of how patients will view the Auraflow. And we worked with Colgate as part of that, or they selected to work with us. And they designed a market research survey for 300 people with periodontal disease. I don't have time for the video, but I can give you the highlights of the results here. What we found were patients were extremely interested in trying Auraflow. Obviously, they cited the pain, inconvenience, and cost as a reason why the minority of them receive standard of care. And 77.4% were extremely or very interested in trying Auraflow. So these are people that have had the past treatment, they've had scaling and root planing, and they cited convenience, painlessness, easy to use, and time efficient as the reasons why they want to use Auraflow. So we have this cool technology, right, validated by the consumers. Obviously, we need to pair that with great clinical data as well. Just a high-level summary, we've done 2 clinical studies so far. First study was 30 patients that used it once a day for 20 minutes over 6 weeks. Second study was 82 patients, same 20-minute a day, kind of like a tooth whitening regimen. That time they used it over for 4 months. And we saw, superior improvements compared to the standard of care. But on top of that, patients, the qualitative metrics were excellent, where we had 88% were likely to continue using Auraflow if recommended by their dentist, and 93% were the effectiveness met or exceeded their expectations. We have to do one more clinical study that we're going through an IDE right now. I don't have time to go through all the details, but I can give you a high-level overview on our process here. We did a pre-submission in January. We just submitted our IDE last month, hoping if everything goes well with that, we'll kick off maybe July, August, depending on what FDA's feedback is. We're a de novo device, so low to moderate risk device with no predicates. And with that, we'd probably be looking Q2 of next year before we're on the market. So other highlights, 26 issued patents, 59 pending patents in 20 plus countries. So we have really strong IP protection. You can imagine we have all the hosts, the standard shots of all the smart people we have supporting us, which we're happy to talk about at another time. But really, we're here to talk about our fundraise, right? So we are closing a fundraising round, $9.2 million round, a convertible note. We have 1.6 million left. And the funds are going to be used for that last clinical study, for FDA clearance, and to get us into manufacturing. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions the audience may have.
Great. Thank you for that, Bill. Owen and Philip, if you put your questions in the chat box. And Franklin, can you tell us what your first question is?
Great presentation. Bill, what's current paid-in capital?
We have about 5 million in equity and the 7.5 million or so in the convertible note so far.
Okay. Previously, there was no non-dilutive capital, apparently.
There was some local grant. I think we got like a couple 100,000 of local.
Yeah, just de minimis non-dilutive. Okay,
correct.
Thank you.
Correct.
One other question. Notable that only 42% of the patient population is currently receiving the standard of care. What's that mean then to the remaining 58% that doesn't receive the standard of care? Is that progressive periodontal disease and ultimately pay me now, pay me later? They're going to end up with just a healthcare degradation, dental degradation?
Yeah. Eventually they'll lose their teeth and have to get implants or dentures.
Yeah.
Or just go without.
Great. Thank you very much. That's good stuff.
So the first question from Owen is, the device looks great. What is the approximate cost of these devices for the patient?
Yeah, so the patient cost will be determined by the dentist. So we'll sell to the dentist for probably $450. And the dentist, this is very different from medicine, right? We don't have to worry about Medicare reimbursement. The dentist will mark it up to whatever he or she sees appropriate. Probably in the $700, $800 range. But in a high-end practice, maybe if you're in Austin, you might be charged $1,200. If you're in rural Mississippi, you might be, $600.
Right. So the next question is, the current manual gum stimulator sticks that the dentists give away for free are very cheap. So what's the plan for training the dentist to be trained in order to recommend, more importantly, convince the patients to use or to pay for this device instead of going the much cheaper option?
Yeah, so those manual sticks, unfortunately, they can't get down into the pockets where the disease is. Like even that scaling and root planing can't get down to the deeper pockets. So the electrical stimulation can actually penetrate. But the big thing for the dentist, right, it's really an economic sell, right? They have this huge untreated market of people already coming in their practice that they have no way to treat, that are just refusing the treatment. So for them, it's saying, hey, during your normal hygiene visit, maybe they're getting, their revenues maybe $120, $150, maybe $60 of profit for that hygiene visit. They can sell it during that 45-minute appointment with no additional chair time and generate at least a few $100s of extra profit, tripling, quadrupling, quintupling the profitability of that appointment, in addition to treating a patient that would otherwise go untreated. So that's really the pitch for the dentist.
So what's the plan to drive adoption with dentists? What's the main method there?
It'll be direct sales. And Steve, I'll let you chime in here quickly.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. That was my expertise that I gained at Tulsa Dental. So we were one of the first companies to sell directly into the dentist versus going through distributor channels. And Invisalign kind of borrowed that same strategy and worked it with orthodontics. So basically, you do a combination of continuing education courses and a lot of them can be online because there's very little technique to this. You hand it to the patient, you show them how to turn it on, and there's really no procedural changes for the dentist or the patient. So we don't envision more than, a handful of regional sales reps to go out and work, trade shows and cultivate these CE providers. And our plan is to sell directly by credit card into the dental office.
What do you anticipate raising in funding in order to drive adoption in the early days?
We're looking at a next round of between 15 and 20 million.
15, 20 million. Okay. And what's the gross margin on the product at your current pricing?
Yeah, our gross margin right now in low volumes is low, right? It's like 40, 50%. But as we get volumes up, that'll, our target's above 80.
Okay, great. I think that's it for the questions here. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. Thank you, Owen. Thank you, Franklin. Let's move to our next presenter, which is going to be Yang Yo of Maipl.
Thank you, Hall. You see my slides?
We see your slides and they're ready to go.
Thank you. I am Yang Yu. I'm the president and CEO of Maipl Therapeutics. We developed the first non-hormonal drug for endometriosis. Endometriosis is a major women's health issue. As you would look at YouTube or anywhere, you will see that endometriosis, the lesion that releases it's an active molecule called prostaglandins. In turn, it induces a number of symptoms, including what's called a dysmenorrhea or menstrual pain, or dysmenorrhea pelvic pain, as well as infertility. The condition is very common, affects nearly 1 in 10 women. Worldwide, there is 190 women affected. Now, when we talk about prostaglandin, when you say it's plural. In reality, there are multiple types of prostaglandins, and there is one specific one that is responsible for endometriosis, which is known as prostaglandin F2 alpha, or PGF2 alpha for short. In a normal endometrium, which is the inner layer of the uterus, it regulates uterine contraction by controlling calcium release. As you can see in this graph, that the uterine acts with its rhythm. It's a powerful movement that's necessary for fertility. In a disease, PGF2 alpha is a driver of the endometriosis-related pain. When too much F2 alpha causes severe uterine contraction, which leads to a dysmenorrhea. And sustained PGF2 alpha leads to inflammation and pelvic pain. Therefore, to treat endometriosis, you really need to go after this driver. Until now, most of the program have looking at elsewhere, so that we are really the first one that targeting prostaglandin F2 alpha. The reason being that chemically targeting this it's difficult. Until now, we have the world's most potent inhibitor of PGF2 alpha. You can see the evolution of PGF2 alpha inhibitors from 90s to now. What I'd like to call your attention is this line that as shown as potency, OI50, a lower number meaning the more potent compounds. As you can see, the last column, the inhibitor from Bexion Pharmaceuticals, now belong to Maipl, has a potency that's 100 times more than the next. We acquired this molecule from Bexion Pharmaceuticals Not only that, we also, the team are made of experienced individuals. These are world-class, highly specialized, experienced team. Aricho Sen, Yoshi, Ian, and Christy, we are all former team members at Ferring. Before that, we had various experience from various pharma companies such as Lilly, Roche, Boehringer Ingelheim, Takeda, and WuXi. In addition, we are backed up by a world-class scientific advisors. So we have a compound, we have IP, we have a team. So now we're ready to take these lead compounds and make them into a drug. Now you may want to know that what is the market look like? Well, it is a large market. In the US alone, there are 7.5 million women affected by the disease. 5 million are symptomatic, of which 2.5 million are seeking treatment, and 1.25 are surgically confirmed. So for hormonal therapy, it is important that given their side effects, that they are giving largely prescribed to the surgically confirmed. Whereas a non-hormonal therapy, we are looking at expanded market, though that we're targeting the 2.5 million patients. The US market potential alone for an oral non-hormonal drug is to be exceed $2 billion per year. There's virtually no competition for non-hormonal. The current medical treatments are inadequate in meeting patient needs. We're not consider them as real competitions. They include NSAIDs, oral contraception pills, GnRH antagonists, IUDs, and neurological pains and analgesics. Surgery is an option. However, they are used only as a last resort. That includes conservative excision of lesions as well as hysterectomy, which is a removal of the uterus. The non-hormonal drug space, there are a number of programs that have tried, that have not worked. And the reason being, as I mentioned earlier, if we're going after endometriosis, we really need to go after the driver. And as you look at the target in this table, they are largely really bystander or secondary effects. None of existing program is targeting the PGF2 alpha. The development timeline is shown in this slide. Today we are here at the stage we have lead molecules, and we are raising pre-seed, which I'll talk about in the next slide. In 6 months, we aim to nominate a drug candidate. A year after that, we plan to submit to an IND or investigational new drug to FDA. Our game plan is to reach clinical proof of concept or POC in 4 years, at which time we'll partner with a large pharma that can be either a co-development deal or we sell the asset to the large pharma. To make this happen, here is where we are raising the funding for. At this stage, we raised $500K as a bridge for us to raise 40 million future raises. We're on track in discussing with venture capitals as well as potential partners with other biotech companies in that future raises. In addition to the VCs, we also waiting for a decision on a potential non-dilutive fundings. As shown in the yellow box, there's an ARPA-H for 10 million and SBIR grant for 2.4 million. So altogether, it's for 12.4 million non-dilutive funding are in place. We have spoken to VCs. We have done diligence for a couple of months, and they are ready to pull the trigger. We anticipate in the next few months we're going to have a deal. However, to get there, we are looking for the 500K as a bridge, as I mentioned earlier. The use of this money is to fund 5 preclinical studies to gather additional data. Thus far, using the $300K that we raised from friends and family, we have completed 2 in vivo animal model studies, as well as 1 safety-related studies. The term of the 500K pre-seed could be either a safe or convertible note. So with that, I thank you for your attention and would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great. Thank you, Jan. And Owen, Philip, if you put your questions in the chat box. Franklin, what's your first question?
A great presentation, Young.
Thank you.
Maybe this is more of a comment than a question, but congratulations on pursuing those validating third-party grant applications, ARPA in particular for 10 million. That's a major feather in your cap. Given that that's just a couple of weeks away, I just think that there'll be your typical pre-seed seed investor is going to say, geez, let's wait and see what this validation looks like, given that correct me if I'm wrong, but there has not been, or excuse me, has there been third-party validation, or is that the purpose of the ARPA grant submission, including the fact, of course, the 10 million non-dilutive?
The validations are, we have already done validation studies within Ferring. What we're looking at is pivoting to a different indication. Ferring previously developed this for a preterm birth, and we are pivoting. We believe that endometriosis is a more suitable indication with more potential. So which is why there's some additional validation needed. We have completed 3 studies. I mentioned 2 in vivo studies. We have seen that in an acute study where we inject mice with the PGF2 alpha, we can see pain, induce pain behaviors, and we treat animals with our compounds. It reverses that pain behavior. What we are looking at the next stage is, just as an example, is we are working with Boston Children's Hospital that has a animal model, one of the first animal models that recapitulate the pain behavior in an endometriosis setting. And so these are the type of study that will really take us to the next stage. So as for waiting to have all data, it's a matter of valuation. At this stage, if one are willing to come in, the valuation certainly would be very different compared to a few months from now. Great question. Thank you, Frank.
Sure, thank you. That's all I got.
The next question is, what level of discussion are you having with the proposed exit companies? You had 3 or 4 up there. What level of discussion are you having with them at this point?
Great question again. I just take one example, is Organon. Organon is very familiar with our program. They have wrote us a letter of endorsement that endorsing our approach, the novelty of the target, the biology, and the safety profile. It's really, I can't stress enough that the safety of targeting a specific type of prostaglandin is very attractive. It's backed up by animal models as well as the knockout mice studies. So at this stage, we are discussing the potential interest from the therapeutic hypothesis perspective. The detailed discussion from BD perspective, it would be too early to say that.
You talked about the intellectual property. Where did it come from, and at what stage is it?
Yeah, so this compound were initially discovered by Ferring Pharmaceuticals. The Ferring is so Maipl has a global license of the entire lead series of compounds for all users. There is no sunset date. So essentially, we would be owning the entire set of this program. Ferring is continuing doing the patent PCT application and the prosecution. This is important. That save us money. Ferring see this as a strategic asset they don't want to take a risk while we are raising. So they're continuing paying the legal bills. I hope that this answers your question.
And after this round, how much more do you need to raise to get to the exit? What forecast do you have there?
To exit total will be 40 million. That includes the up to phase 2 clinical trials.
Okay, great. I think that's it for the questions. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you, Yang. Let's move to our next presenter, Starpax. Thierry?
Yes.
Yeah.
Second,
Go
sure.
ahead and launch your slides and we'll kick off when you're ready.
Do you see my screen now?
Yes, we do.
Yes. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Hal, for the opportunity. So at Starpax, my name is Thierry Page. I'm the COO of Starpax, and we have developed a totally new modality for cancer treatment for solid tumors. We have it is conceived to avoid the side effects of the current treatments. It's drug-bearing bacteria that we can control by magnetic fields. So basically, we guide them, we guide their distribution into a tumor volume, avoiding the systemic exposure of systemic treatment. So with this approach, we can treat a tumor, a solid tumor, with 500 times more drug in the tumor than systemic chemo, and we are able to address the hypoxic zones that are specifically targeted, and I'll come back in a short video why this is so important. So this approach is minimally invasive. It's intended to preserve the tissue, organs, or functions that could be damaged with radiation therapy or invasive surgeries. It's tumor agnostic, it's drug agnostic, and it's immune trigger. So basically, we are solving a major problem of resistance to treatment. 90% of a tumor will not receive drug in a systemic treatment, and this is where we come with a different solution.
Now, no drug to date has been able to work in a hypoxic environment. Radiation therapy doesn't work there. Immunotherapy, the immune cells are blocked from going into a hypoxic zone. And so it's an area that we need to penetrate. And finally, with the Starpax technology, we have bacteria that actually move towards and can be accumulated in the hypoxic zone.
The Starpax treatment is conceived to deliver therapeutic agents directly to hypoxic zones and throughout the tumor volume using BN1S bacteria. The BN1S is a proprietary bacterium developed in laboratory. It is non-pathogenic and sensitive to magnetic fields with which Starpax controls its trajectory with millimetric precision. These bacteria loaded with the drug constitute the Starpax magnetodrones. The second part of the technology is the Starpax polar track. The patient is positioned in the polar track so that the tumor is at the focal point of the magnetic fields generated by the polar track. After reaching the tumor, the magnetodrones are injected. At this moment, the polar track is conceived to create a magnetic sphere around the tumor in order to contain the magnetodrones and their drugs inside the tumor to avoid toxicity elsewhere in the patient's body. Thanks to their small size, the magnetodrones swim within the tumor. Then they follow a magnetic focal point that moves in 3 dimensions within the tumor volume. At the heart of the tumor, the magnetodrones release the medication attacking the cancer cells, including the ones in the hypoxic zones. The bacteria die after 60 minutes because the body temperature is too high for them to survive.
So we have a very well experienced board of directors. Our founding president, Michael Garrow, is a serial tech entrepreneur in health tech. He had to exit over $1 billion. Last private equity provided the IRR of 318%. We've got 3 former president of large pharma. We've got a retired CEO of JP Morgan Europe, retired oncologist with 35 years of clinical development and oncology practice, and a partner in a law firm. We have completed all our animal studies, entering soon in clinical trials, and we work with very aggressive tumors, HCT116, that basically will double every 48 hours, and we had 100% remission rate. We had no meaningful side effects observed based on 6 animal models. And so in our clinical trials, we expect that we will have 3,500 more drug in the tumor than systemic treatment, with 800 times fewer toxic molecules in the body. So with Starpax, there's 3 therapeutic benefit in one treatment. There is a localized chemotherapy inside the tumor. So basically keeping the drug inside the tumor. We are targeting the hypoxic zones, where we are the only treatment that is able to really target the hypoxic areas. And because it's bacteria, so it triggers the immune system, and this has a synergetic effect with the other mechanism. So our clinical trials are planned for early next year. We will work in 6 important organs, all unmet medical needs, that basically represent a market of opportunity of $56 billion per year. And so far we have completed 2 important milestones on top of our preclinical studies. We have completed the construction of our GMP plant for the magnetodrones, and also the Jewish General Hospital has installed our Polar Track, and basically they've converted a radiation therapy room to put our Polar Track, dedicated $11 million. And this tells you a lot when you know the war for space in hospitals. So to dedicate such space for a new technology, that tells you a lot. So we have established important partnership for the next phases. We will conduct the clinical trials. We are a Montreal-based company, and we will conduct clinical trials with 2 important research institutions here in Montreal, related to the McGill University and University of Montreal. The Jewish General Hospital is a world-class cancer treatment institution. Michael Douglas, when he had his head and neck cancer, came here in Montreal to be treated. Also, we have collaborations, 3 co-investigators from the MD Anderson Cancer Center, and recently we've been we were accepted in the Innovation Exchange Program of the Mayo Clinic. So our business model, so we don't intend to sell the Polar Track into hospitals. This is a too long sales cycle. Instead, we intend to open Starpax Cancer Center, ambulatory imaging and interventional treatment. This is an example of what the Polar Track interventional room would look like. This is the equipment installed at Jewish General Hospital. And our market assessment is that there would be a market for 600 Starpax Cancer Center in North America. We doubled the number if we include Europe. And to give you a reference point, there are 2,000 outpatient radiation therapy ambulatory clinic in the US. So we are not reinventing the wheel here. So Starpax Cancer Center would be a building, equipment owned, operated by Starpax, 10 Polar Tracks, 2 MRI, and 1 CT scanner. So the idea is to deploy 25 of them over a period of 7 years. So after having approval from FDA, then we build the first cancer center in year 2. Second year, it's in 50% in operation, and the third year it's in full operation, and we roll out like that the deployment over time. So it's a very profitable business model. It's a cash flow positive. After the first cancer center, we have substantial profit margins. So in terms of timeline, we have completed our magnetodrone manufacturing plant. We are currently doing the commissioning, and to enter phase 1 next year, 2025. At that time, when we will have the first human data, we intend to enter in NASDAQ, and then we'll conduct efficacy for the 6th cancer. We will prioritize the first cancer, and they can be conducted independently. So as soon as we finish the first one, we file for preliminary approval. So far, we've raised $57 million for the 14 in non-dilutive, 45 in equity, and now we are currently having a pre-IPO raise of $25 million. And you see here the use of funds. So this should bring us to completion of phase 2 for a first indication, which would be an important milestone. We have a unique anti-dilution protection for all investors. It's all common shares, no convertible debt, no dilutive warrant, no options. So it's open rounds that we have, and every time that there is a new investor, so a share is canceled. So only IPAX2, which is the holding of our funding president, that is diluted. So people then they can invest different size of ticket. Everybody is aligned, and there is no complication about what will be the next dilution. So we believe it's a low investment risk compared to the development of new drug. 97% of new developed drug will fail to be approved at FDA, but we don't develop a new drug. We use anti-cancer molecules that have been used for more than 20 years, and their toxicity known. We are just using less. It's a proven mechanism of action in human, and in terms of commercial clearance, it would be a CEDAR combination product. We meet the criteria of the FDA fast track, and because it's an already used molecule and approved in different products, it should be a 505(b)(2) in terms of the pathway, which reduce the time and cost. In terms of the power track, it's low intensity magnetic field, 2,000 times weaker than MRI. And also in terms of reimbursement, our workflow, patient workflow is very similar to the radiation therapy workflow. So there's billing codes for all those medical acts. Finally, we have a Form 1A that is registered at the SEC, and our broker is registered at the USA FINRA. So thank you very much. I will be glad to answer all your questions.
Great. Thank you, Thierry. Franklin, what's your first question?
Great presentation, Thierry. What is the average capital cost for a typical Starpax center?
So we estimate that the typical cost for a cancer center would be 60 millions. And we expect that we should be able to finance that with 80% debt, and the rest would be equity. So it's $12 billion equity to finance one cancer center. Basically, we need to invest for the first cancer center, and then we are cash flow positive, and we can support all the constructions of the next cancer centers.
I want to make sure I got you said 16, 16?
No, sorry, 60.
60.
Yes, finance at 80% in debt, because
Okay,
it's brick
so
and mortar and medical equipment.
Your business model called for 25 cancer centers.
Correct.
So there's 25 centers at 60 million apiece.
Correct.
Okay. And what is the capital investment, or actually the paid-in capital, if you will, that is put at risk prior to FDA approval? Or
yeah, so currently there's already $57 million invested.
Yeah, I guess
and now we are raising $25 million. This should bring us to the end of phase 2. Then it could be expected that we will raise 20 additional millions in order to conduct the approval and everything.
Okay. Thanks very much. End of my questions.
So first question from Owen is, how novel is the concept of the self-propelled bacterium and controlling magnetic system?
Oh, to our knowledge, we are the only technology that we are the only one, and we have 57 family patents for that. So basically, we have the exclusivity of the space when it comes to guiding bacteria with magnetic fields.
Right. If in the future another company brings to market a very successful drug for cancer, could that drug be attached to the Starpax tech?
Yeah, we are a platform technology, so we are drug agnostic. So currently now we are working with an already approved drug that is off patent, a generic, but down the road we can add additional drugs that could be more specific to different indications and things like that. So it's really a cargo. The bacteria is a cargo for a payload.
And so for the Starpax centers, are you planning to partner with any companies for the build out, or are you planning to go it alone and just hire everybody directly?
Yeah, for the very good question. So we are already in discussion with large players that are interested in providing the medical equipment, building everything, and financing the cancer centers. So we will partner with industrial players that has muscles that are much larger than us.
All right, great. That's the end of our questions. Thank you so much, Thierry, and thank you, Franklin and Owen, for great questions as well. We come to our final presenter here, which is Vaneltix. If you guys could launch your slides, Dan and Ron, and we'll look forward to your presentation.
Great, thank you. I'm Dan Vickery. I'm the CEO of Vaneltix. To this day, 50 million patients per year, mostly women, go to see a urologist, gynecologist, or primary care physician, complaining of urinary urgency, frequency, and pelvic pain. We're working to change all that, but also importantly, we're here to offer the TEN Capital community the opportunity to partner with us on a one-and-done financing of a late-stage pharmaceutical with blockbuster potential as we prepare the company for an exit. So the area of pelvic pain that we work on with the highest unmet need is interstitial cystitis or bladder pain syndrome. It mostly affects women, and there's around 6 million, at least 6 million patients who have it. And it's a pelvic pain syndrome, so you don't really feel your bladder. But the important thing to consider about this kind of affliction is that people who have it generally know what causes them to get into pain, whether it's something they eat, food, physical activity, sexual activity, and they sort of avoid them. But whether it's an empirical event or whether they do something that's not on their treatment plan, they get into pain. And that's when they go in to see a healthcare provider. And that's very key and important, because when that patient with symptoms is with a provider who's knowledgeable about Alinura, he can prescribe and administer Alinura and take the patient out of a painful flare, and we can make a sale. What Alinura is it's essentially a formulation of alkalized lidocaine and high-dose heparin that's instilled directly into the bladder by catheter. And if you think about it in layman's terms, you're basically getting a nerve block you'd get for any other painful condition, and you're getting a Band-Aid. So the Alinura, the lidocaine will anesthetize the pain, and the high-dose heparin acts as a Band-Aid to help protect the bladder wall. And essentially the problem is our research has shown that these patients have an inability to make enough bladder mucus, which is called a gag layer, or they don't repair it very effectively, so that toxic components of urine can penetrate the tissues. And essentially that's often potassium ions, which depolarize muscles and cause neuronal cell death. So when you administer our product, you really do see profound pain relief. So Alinura is a 15 ml prefilled syringe of a patented combination of alkalized lidocaine and heparin, not lidocaine USP, it's alkalized lidocaine. And our data, the best separation from placebo ever published in ICBPS studies, has been well recognized both in guidelines and by the regulators. So because of this data, the best type A evidence that's out there, we're first-line drug therapy and guidelines to treat this condition. And the FDA essentially agreed we only need small confirmatory studies in phase 3 with our final dosage form, an elegant prefilled solution to seek approval of the NDA. And this really is a huge market and a huge problem. Now, I used to be the head of commercial development for a large pharmaceutical company and for women's healthcare and urology. And if I went to the development team and said this bladder installation had a real blockbuster potential, there'd be a few raised eyebrows. But the fact of the matter is that every analog, every factor that going into this model here is well validated. And most recently, we've been working on pricing and reimbursement. assuming that we could get parity to what the ingredients cost, because 250 milligrams of the 50,000 units of heparin that are in our formulation are expensive, and many physicians and treaters go subtherapeutic because of that. But ultimately, we spoke to payers, and the payers, told us that they know when someone with this code in their database gets into a painful flare, it costs them thousands, and if we could be, under 1,000, they'd be happily pay that, and that, comes to around $300 per dose. We've essentially recently learned that we have probably pricing flexibility that we didn't know that we had, and that's a key point, as well as these other 2 points at the bottom. Remember, we're already first-line therapy and guidelines to treat this condition, and there's already millions of treatments already taking place where a doctor is waiting for a solution that would be an elegant pre-filled syringe they could build to the patient's drug plan. But you don't have to believe us exactly for this. And indifferent to some of the other companies that come to these kind of events, we're already fully funded for the development of Alinura. We've got a partnership with Hyloris Pharmaceuticals of Belgium, who specializes in repurposed drugs. They've got a really well-advanced development team. They're a great partner, and they've agreed to finance the full development of Alinura for what is essentially a royalty financing scheme. And it's non-dilutive to us. It's actually a profit split, and we're going through the phase right now where we're going through the phase 2 development of the dosage form for $7 million. But the key is that the profit split that they get is capped. So the day that we find out that we've got ability to have free pricing, all of that extra value accrues directly to our new shareholders and our new investors. And anything that we can do to grow the top line on Alinura really, at this point, goes to our investors. So that's new indications, new uses, speed to market, or pricing and reimbursement. All those things are really going to help this product achieve that commercial potential, and all of that value will come to us as Hyloris is capped. We also have an interesting pipeline of products. I'm not going to go into the pipeline because of time, but 002 is essentially an on-the-market growth factor that we showed will actually grow bladder urothelium. So your bladder urothelium gets damaged directly with pelvic radiation. So that's radiation cystitis, hemorrhagic cystitis. So if you think about the use of erythropoietin after chemotherapy to regrow blood cells, common practice, we could be in a situation where 002 is routinely given to patients who are getting pelvic radiation to take them out of radiation cystitis. So that's an orphan indication and a supportive oncology indication. Very interesting new type of indications. All of our products are patented. Again, in the interest of time, I won't go into too much detail, but I will talk about the last Alinura patent. The lidocaine that we use is different than lidocaine USP, and so I mentioned that that's a key important piece. We showed that when you actually take alkalized lidocaine and you put it in the common container closure systems that are used to get FDA approval of the product, alkalized lidocaine migrates into polypropylene and therefore cannot be used. We've patented every other container closure system that can be used to make a pharmaceutically an FDA approvable dosage form. So even if someone could get around some of our other patents, they wouldn't be able to put together an NDA in a pharmaceutically approved dosage form that wouldn't violate one of our patents. So we're patented well into the late 2030s, 2040s with our various inventions. The other thing that's very, very unique about our situation is that there's no one doing what we're doing. There's nobody out there creating women's health care and urology products, and yet there's a lot of large companies active in that market. So you see we've got Astellas there, who markets the largest OAB product, Mirbatique. They recently launched Veoza for hot flashes. You may have seen the TV ads both at the Super Bowl and the Academy Awards on Veoza. Bayer has a Veoza-type product, and they're also involved in women's health care. Organon spun out of Merck, and Marganon is the most active deal maker. Most of these deals we've listed below are Organon deals since they were spun out as a women's health care company without a pipeline. Urovant and Myovant recently merged to Sumitomo Pharma America, which is a women's health care and urology company. They've got the next big OAB product, Gemtesa. all of these companies have boots on the ground. They've all got products that are in life cycle management that when they're looking for products, we're going to be close to market, and we are designed to be an acquisition candidate or serial licensor to these companies around the world. So this is a fairly unique proposition, but Hyloris is paying for the development of Alinura. And because of this small phase 3 development program, we fully expect Alinura will be taken into phase 3 by a sales and marketing partner, because the short and fast duration phase 3 needs to be done in coordination with full launch planning. I mean, the brass ring here is that we get a new CPT code for the treatment of the disease with our product, in which case we essentially take over the entire market, because the physicians will transfer from what they're doing now to the more fully reimbursed both to the patient and to their product to treat the condition. So while we're spending Hyloris's money developing the product, we're raising $5 million separately to focus purely on commercial development and getting the company ready for an exit. And that includes market research and finish the pricing and finish the reimbursement pathway work, as well as understanding the CPT code. This disease is underdiagnosed. We can probably get a diagnosis code so that if you give a bladder installation with Alinura to a patient with undiagnosed bladder pain and they goes away, pretty much diagnosed pain of bladder origin. So that's a huge new opportunity. We've got a great pipeline that can be developed and brought into clinical status. And we have, we want to get this company audited and ready for, that acquisition or whatever comes our way. The company doing this normally would do a convertible note, but that converts into the exit. However, because in New Jersey you're eligible for a 25% tax credit, if you put $100,000 into this company, the state of New Jersey will send you back $25,000. We've structured it as a preferred share. It has aspects that make it act like debt: anti-dilution protection, liquidation preference. We're raising $5 million. We've closed on 1.5. We have about 1.5 million in commitments. Some external due diligence by some angels has been done. The team is really experts in commercially launching these products, and people who've developed companies in women's healthcare, KOLs in the field. Really a strong management and board. So in summary, we're just taking an unmet need for which needs a dosage form or reimbursed dosage form, and we're doing that, fully validated by the agreement with Hyloris, and we believe that this exit and the maximum value of this company can occur in about 18 to 24 months. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Dan. Owen, if you could type in your question, that'd be great. And Franklin, what's your first question?
Great presentation, Dan. Enjoyed that. Could you give us a history of the company from the capital standpoint? You're in a Series E preferred private placement, very modest expectations. What happened in the A, B, C, and D rounds?
Well, the Series E is the name of the preferred share series. So the legacy entity did have Series A shares, Series B shares, Series C shares. Those are all gone. The management holds Series D shares, which essentially we use to control the voting of the company. So it's 51% controlled by management and the board through the Series D holdings, which have super voting power. And then friends and family own another 35%. So it's 85% owned by people that we know. And it's just the letter of series. It could have been G, it could have been F, it could have been A or B. It's been just that's the history.
Yeah, I'm kind of well aware of that alphabet soup thing, but this is an important topic, actually.
Yeah, it's simple capital structure.
But you said the A, B, and the C went away. How did it go away?
The shell was sitting in a bankruptcy of a hedge fund. So it was owned by a hedge fund who eventually went bankrupt, and we took it out of the
you did a recap. Okay,
got it. By doing the recap of the Series D.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Can you talk about your intellectual property? Where did it come from, and what's the current status of it?
Well, the original patent is licensed out of the University of California. That was where one of the scientific founders worked. And then all of the subsequent IP has been developed internally. So we wholly own all of our late stage patents, and then the early stage patents we have a basically 4% royalty owing to the UCSD for not too long after years of marketing. Their IP will expire.
And on the exit strategy, can you talk about the most likely scenario that you think was going to happen?
Well, I think that essentially somebody like Organon will start into licensing discussions, and with a product that's going to be, have really good several $100 million potential right around the time that they would be interested to have that kind of a product. And I think that they will evolve into acquisition discussions, as these things often do.
Great. Those are the end of the questions that we have here today. I think we're at the conclusion of our presentations. I want to thank everybody for great presentations. I want to thank Franklin Rice, Owen Kerwin, and Philip Hughes for great questions for the chat box as well. And with that, we'll now move into breakout rooms. With that, we'll bring Dave Garza back up, and he'll walk us through how to go through the breakout rooms itself. Dave?